Welcome back, friends, to another PvP guide video. Today's guide will be about RET Paladin for PvP. I want to cover the best talents and builds for at this moment. I want to cover your stat priority as a RET Paladin and also kind of touch some gear that you should go after with, including some crafted gear with embellishments that I think are the best at this moment for RET Paladins. How to burst as a RET Paladin when you have all your cooldowns ready. How you can absolutely destroy someone. And I want to quickly go over the normal rotation. That's more like if you don't have any cooldowns, how you can do some sustained damage and how that will look like. So walk with me and I'll show you how you become the true Crusader. So here you have the build that I'm running currently. It's a build that I reflected on the top 50 players for Solo Shuffle. Let's look at the left side of the general Paladin tree. There are a few things that I think you should go for. And you can see them here down at the bottom. There are 3 things that I think are mandatory in this build. You want to go with Seal of Order, you want to go with Divine Resonance, and you want to go with Vengeful Wrath. And everything in here between is kind of like a standard build. There isn't a lot of things I would change in this build, only for one. For example, if you have a dedicated healer with you, you can drop Healing Hands, so you sacrifice a little bit of extra self sustainability, and then you can put it into Holy Aegis. Holy Aegis increases your armor value. But more importantly, for RET Paladins, of course, increase your critical strike chance. The first tier gives you 2% increased critical strike chance. The second tier will give you 4% increased critical strike chance. And of course, 4% increased armor. But that's, in my opinion, not that important. So, if you have a dedicated healer, you can give up Healing Hands and put another point in here in Holy Aegis. If you want to be more sustainable yourself, or you want to sustain your friends more, and if you don't have a dedicated healer with you, take 1 point out of Holy Aegis and you put it into Healing Hands. Let's go to the left here to Of Dusk and Dawn. It's a passive. When you cast 3 holy power generating abilities, you gain Blessing of Dawn. When you consume Blessing of Dawn, you gain Blessing of Dusk. Kind of confusing, right? But let's see what they both do. So Blessing of Dawn makes sure that your next holy power spending ability deals 20% additional increased damage and healing. And that one can stack. Blessing of Dusk, on the other hand, damage taken will be reduced by 5%, and your holy power generating abilities also grant an absorb shield for 10% of the damage or healing dealt for 10 seconds. So this is a nice passive that either increases your damage or your survivability. And if you go here to Seal of Order, it's again those 2 buffs, but then they buff it again. So the Blessing of Dawn, you'll get an extra increased damage or healing by 10%, and Blessing of Dusk increase your armor by 10%. And your holy power generating abilities cooldown, they cool down 10% faster. So that's nice to get your cooldowns back, your abilities back faster. So it makes your playstyle a lot more fluent. Here to the middle, if you go to Divine Toll, instantly cast Judgment on up to 5 targets within 30 yards. After casting Divine Toll, you instantly cast Judgment every 5 seconds. This effect lasts 15 seconds. And I think that line isn't in their standard, but comes from this one down here. But after that, also Divine Toll's Judgment deals 100% increased damage. So the Judgment that comes from this one, like if you have the normal Judgment right here, does an X amount of damage. And causes, of course, that your target will take 20% increased damage from your next holy power ability. So with this one, with Divine Toll, that damage that it says here will be increased even further. And then down here, Divine Resonance, make sure that like after you casted the first Divine Toll and the first hammers are sent outwards, it will make sure that every 5 seconds you'll throw hammers again to all your targets within range. And it will do that for a total amount of 15 seconds, so you can throw hammers 3 times then. To the right side, you have Seal of the Crusader, which makes sure it's a passive, which makes sure that your auto attacks will deal an X amount of holy damage. And yeah, that's some passive damage increase, really nice. But the main goal with going with this one is, of course, you want to unlock Vengeful Wrath. Vengeful Wrath is a passive that makes sure that whenever you cast Hammer of Wrath, that ability will always crit on the enemy. And when we go to the right side of the RET Paladin tree, we'll see why this one is really nice. So if we go to the right side of the RET Paladin tree, this is a kind of a standard build. Some people take, instead of Crusade, they take Avenging Wrath. This one gives you 1 minute wings. Crusade gives you 2 minute wings, or burst ability. The Crusade in general is more powerful, but you can use it less often, of course. But I prefer to have that bigger damage cooldown over the shorter one. And also what you can do then is go to the left side here. This is one that's pretty nice. Adjudication. Hopefully I pronounced that right, but I doubt it, but we'll see. But it's a passive. Critical strike damage of your abilities increased by 5%, and Hammer of Wrath. Critical strike causes a blast hammer to spiral outwards, dealing an X amount of holy strike damage to your enemies. So this one, in conjunction with the Vengeful Red from the General Paladin tree, work really well together. Because this one will always critical strike, so that damage will also be increased by 5%, so that's really nice because Hammer of Wrath can hit pretty hard. And also, like when it crits, which it always does when you take this talent, it will send out a spiraling hammer at your enemies for, again, an X amount of holy strike damage. So these two, they just buff each other massively, which is really nice. If you go further down, you get Blades of Light, also a passive. When you read it, it doesn't sound interesting, but when you go further down to the talent right here, Divine Arbiter, then you get why it's really nice. So Crusader Strike, Judgment, Hammer of Red, and your damaging single target holy power abilities, they'll deal holy strike damage. Doesn't sound important, but when you go down here to Divine Arbiter, which you also want to take, then it becomes clear why it's good. So it's another passive. Abilities that deal holy strike damage deal 5% increased damage, and casting abilities that deal holy strike damage grants you a stack of Divine Arbiter. So again, you have another passive damage increase of 5% to your holy strike damage abilities, which of course are now Crusading Strike, Judgment, Hammer of Red, and your damaging single target holy power abilities. So again, this one is really, really nice. It also increases, because it's a single target, it also increases the damage of Final Verdict as well, for example. And this is just an awesome talent that just bursts, I think, almost all of your single target holy power abilities. It's absolutely nice. But also, like the Divine Arbiter, we saw that it can give you a stack. Like at 25 stacks, your next damaging single target holy power ability causes an X amount of holy strike damage to your primary target and an X amount of holy strike damage to enemies within 6 yards. So again, this is another passive that, like, when you reach 25 stacks, you can do some really spiky damage. And especially if those abilities crit, it's absolutely insane. So here in the middle, there are another few talents that I think are mandatory. I'll go over to this one right here. This is kind of like a choice you have to make. Both are really good. You have Final Reckoning, which is like a 1-minute cooldown. And you have Execution Sentence, which is a 30-second cooldown. I have to be honest, I see most people run with Execution Sentence. And I think the main reason why people would go with this one is that it's just because it's a 30-second cooldown and the other one is a 1-minute cooldown. So you can cast Execution Sentence twice, while you can only cast one Final Reckoning in that window. But I'll explain quickly why I like Final Reckoning more. And here's why. Because Final Reckoning, if you look at the tooltip right there, it calls down a blast of heavenly energy, dealing an X amount of holy damage to all targets in the target area, and causing them, which means all of those people that get hit by this ability, to take 30% increased damage from your holy power abilities for a whopping 12 seconds. And it also generates free holy power. If you look at Execution Sentence, it's differently. Like when you press this ability, it doesn't do an instant damage at all. A hammer slowly falls from the sky upon the target, and upon the target only means one target. So Final Reckoning is more like an AoE burst that also it causes a little bit of cleave damage in the beginning. But beware, you have to target this one and you can miss this one, beware. An Execution Sentence doesn't have the initial damage and it limits to one target. One target that you cast is all. So the hammer falls slowly from the sky, and after 8 seconds they suffer 30% of the damage taken from your abilities as holy damage during that time. So it's the also main difference between Execution Sentence and Final Reckoning is that with Execution Sentence, it's more like you are working with a bank that stores your damage, I would say, for example. So every attack you cast in this window of 8 seconds, the damage bank, as I will call it, they'll keep that damage number. And then after the 8 seconds, the bank is like, okay, here you have it back right in your face. But then at the 8-second mark, the damage that has been stored will be thrown back on the target that the execution sentence was cast on. So after 8 seconds, only then you get an instant damage blast. And with the Final Reckoning, whenever you press it and it hits the enemy, they immediately take 30% increased damage from all your holy power abilities. So after the first second, if for example you press Final Verdict, the Final Verdict will deal 30% extra damage right away. Including with Wake of Ashes, your judgments, everything immediately will deal 30% extra damage. So it's not stored anymore. And that's why I like Final Reckoning personally more than Execution Sentence, because it gives you immediately that 30% increased damage buff on everyone that's being hit by this ability. So also your cleave damage, for example, if you have multiple targets and you also cast Divine Toll and you start to throw out hammers, those hammers will also deal 30% extra damage to all the targets that were hit by the Final Reckoning. With Execution Sentence, only your primary target will take that 30% extra damage, but then after 8 seconds, right? So this is a choice you have to make. Do you want a shorter cooldown but a less strong ability, or you want a really strong extra cooldown ability but double the cooldown? That's up to you, but I think Final Reckoning, I prefer it more because you have more right in the face damage. I've had few times when I cast Execution Sentence that I already killed my target with all the burst before this one could even go off. So then it was kind of useless. And I know in those situations, if I use Final Reckoning, I could have downed that person immediately, faster, and then go to the next one. Because of course it's cleave damage. So that's what I like more about Final Reckoning. But I would say try out both. And again, I have to say, most people in arena fights, they choose Execution Sentence, probably because of the reduced cooldown. But if you suspect multiple people grouped up together, Final Reckoning is absolutely one that you should go with. If you go further down, you have Divine Auxiliary. That's a passive. That makes sure your Final Reckoning and Execution Sentence grants free holy power. So normally this one would not give you free holy power, neither Final Reckoning or Execution Sentence. This is just a passive buff that whenever you press Final Reckoning or Execution Sentence, you'll get instantly free holy power. So that just makes your setup a little bit smoother. If you go here to the right side, you have to go with Wake of Ashes. Wake of Ashes is a rather short cooldown, but it hits hard. So it lashes out to your enemies, dealing an X amount of radiant damage to all enemies within 14 yards in front of you, reducing their movement speed by 50% and burning them for an X amount of radiant damage. But that burning is from one of the talents further down here. Further down here, take Seething Flames. It's a passive that Wake of Ashes deals significantly reduced damage to secondary targets, but now calls you to lash out 2 extra times for another X amount of radiant damage. So with Seething Flames, it will make it more into a single target ability, which in most cases, if you play arenas for example, mostly you want to have that. You want to have the most single target pressure available, and that's why you take Seething Flames. Also take Truce Wake. It's a passive that makes sure that Wake of Ashes also causes targets to burn for an additional X amount of radiant damage over 9 seconds. So this one again buffs up Wake of Ashes even further. There are 2 that I think are mandatory, which are these 2 right here. The one that you always want to take is Aura of Reckoning. It's a passive. When you or allies within your aura are critically struck, gain Reckoning. Gain 1 additional stack if you are the victim. And then at 100 stacks of Reckoning, your next weapon swing deals 200% increased damage, will critically strike and activate Crusade for 9 seconds. So this one is absolutely mandatory. So when you reach at 100 stacks, your weapon swing will do more damage, will be a critical strike, and also really important, it will give you 9 seconds of Crusade. And Crusade normally is your big burst window. Another one you really want to take is Blessing of Sanctuary. It instantly removes all stun, silence, fear, and horror effects from the friendly target and reduce the duration of future such effects by 60% for 5 seconds. I like to go with Blessing of Spell Warden. It's another a bob, a shield. It blesses a party or raid member, granting immunity to magical damage and harmful effects for 10 seconds. So for example, when you have a fire mage casting combustion, you can use this one and just deny the whole burst. Well, let's say you face a melee lobby, a melee composition as the enemy team. What I would do then Blessing of Spell Warden becomes kind of useless, right? So what you can do then, you can trade off Blessing of Spell Warden and you take Luminescence. So whenever you're not facing a caster heavy comp, you'll go with Luminescence. So the gear you want to go for stats wise is really easy. You want to have as high primary stat as possible. For Red Paladins, primary stat will be Strength. So high Strength will make sure you'll hit harder. After Strength you want to stack Versatility. After Versatility comes Mastery. After Mastery comes Haste. And after Haste comes Critical Strike. But there are some pieces that I find stats wise are kind of lacking. And that in particular are the shoulders and the feet. So if we look at the shoulder option, for example, this one gives crit and versatility. Crit is a really bad stat for Red at this moment. And the other one gives haste and versatility, which is not bad. But we would rather have versatility and mastery. So what I would do, instead of picking this shoulders, I would go for a crafted one. And I'll show you in a second which one it is. And for the feet it's the same. You have one that gives haste and versatility, and one that gives crit and versatility. Both are not that great, so again, that's why I would say like also swap out your feet for a piece of crafted gear. So here we are, guys. Here we are at the crafting station. It's in Veldrekken. It's right over here where I am. You talk to this lady over here. We'll go to armor. We want to go plate, and we want to go for the shoulder slope. So the one you want to go for the shoulders is this one right here. It comes with a random stat, but the random stat you can actually, with a missive, you can make it a guaranteed first mastery. But this is the one you want to get. This one is not optional. You have to add a spark in there, Spark of Dreams. And get one of those PvP tokens. Embellishments, I'll show you which embellishment you want to put on there. This is the embellishment you want to get, and this one you can just buy from the auction house. So for the missive, you want to have the Draconic Missive of the Harmonious. That's the one you want to throw on there. This is the one you want to get. This one kind of comes with an embellishment already in it, so you don't need to buy an additional embellishment. Comes already with versatility and mastery, which are the best stats for Red Paladin at this moment. If you can immediately go for those two crafted items, because if you have the gold for it, they're really easy to get and it really buffs up already your performance in PvP. I'll quickly explain what I'll be doing in the burst window and also leave it down in the description. You want to make sure you have 3 stacks of Holy Power. When you have 3 stacks of Holy Power, you press Crusade, you cast the Final Verdict, you cast the Divine Toll, you cast the Final Verdict again, and then you should be roughly at 7 stacks of Crusade. Then you cast the Hammer of Justice on your kill target or on your healer. To get to trigger the stat boost you'll get from the Inferior's War Boots of Impunity. Then you cast the Final Reckoning, or of course the Execution Sentence, combined with the Divine Auxiliary talent that will make sure you get 3 Holy powers back. Then you cast another Final Verdict, and then if you run low on Holy Power, you can cast a Blade of Justice or a Judgment. Then you cast another Final Verdict, then you use Wake of Ashes, you can Final Verdict again, and then you just follow up with your normal rotation. So let me show you how it looks like. First we want to build up 3 stacks of Holy Power. We're gonna do that right here. Now we have 3 stacks. You want to press Crusade, cast Final Verdict, cast Divine Toll, then another Final Verdict, you stun your target, cast Final Reckoning right there, Final Verdict, you can do Blade of Justice, Final Verdict, Wake of Ashes, Final Verdict, and whenever you have a proc of Hammer of Wrath, you can also throw in, of course, as you can see there, which also builds up some Holy Power. And then it's just getting Holy Power back and spending it with Final Verdict. And that's how you burst as a Red Paladin. Normal rotation for Red Paladins that you use outside of your burst window. You want to use Hammer of Red. The moment it comes off cooldown, you want to use this as much as possible. You want to cast Blade of Justice also whenever it comes off cooldown. You cast Judgment. Judgment is important also to make sure that your Holy Power spending abilities will deal more damage and also to keep your enemies slowed. After that you want to cast Final Verdict, you want to cast another Judgment, you can even throw in a Wake of Ashes after that and cast Final Verdict again, and then after that you'll keep continuing with Generators and Spenders. A Judgment, Blade of Justice, and there we go. Final Verdict again. Can call Wake of Ashes. Final Verdict. Blaze of Justice. Judgment. Final Verdict. Hammer of Wrath. Final Verdict. Judgment. Final Verdict. Hammer of Wrath. Blade of Justice. Final Verdict. And that's in general how you do your normal rotation as a Red Paladin. It's not that hard. We discussed quite a few things from the best build talents, which I'll leave in the description. Also to how to burst as a Red Paladin, and also how to do your normal rotation. The burst rotation and the normal rotation I both also leave in the description below. So yeah, be sure to check it out so you can see what I've done. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you like what you see, consider subscribing. I'm a small channel, and every subscriber that helps out immensely. Also, to reach out more people, I would ask you to share this video out there. It also really helps. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments. I'm happy to reply them all. And hope this was useful, guys. This was Commander, and I'll see you in the next battle. Salute!